Okay, we're about to get started, everybody. So just before we do, I'm just going to ask that you turn off videos and microphones for this next portion of as we get started, so that everybody can enjoy this next hour of the formal program to get started. So good day to everybody here joining us from Australia, New Zealand, India, from the rest of the Asia Pacific region, and from around the world. We've got a great group of people here, expecting about 60 attendees. I'm Dave McAlaga, president of the International Map Industry Association, joining you here on a late evening from Ottawa, Canada. Today marks a special day on the IMIA calendar, as it's IMIA's first virtual event designed for the Asia Pacific region. This has been pulled together with the support of many individuals and organizations, but in particular, I'd like to thank the New Zealand Cartographic Society for their support with marketing this event to the region. We have a great program lined up for you today, and I highly encourage you to stick around for the half-hour small group networking time we'll have after the first hour. This is a structure we've used many times in the past that everyone has enjoyed, and after the past couple of years of pandemic isolation, it's a great opportunity for you to meet informally with industry colleagues. I will soon hand this over to our moderator and panel, but before that, I'll ask you to indulge me on providing you with some background on the International Map Industry Association, or IMIA. IMIA is a global association. Commercial organizations are active in the provision of mapping and geospatial products to consumers, businesses, and other sectors in this industry. We also have a number of associate members from the government and academic sectors. The association plays an important role in the kinds of activities you'll experience today. Primarily, the opportunity to learn about key trends and topics relevant to industry leaders, and the opportunity to engage with peers to develop powerful local and international relationships that can help you drive your organizations forward. We also create opportunities for collaboration and communication between the commercial and professional spheres, such as we are doing today with the New Zealand Cartographic Society. Many of you joining us today were members of the Asia Pacific region of IMIA prior to the significant restructuring 2.5 years ago to merge the European, North American, and Asia Pacific chapters into a single international organization. I completely understand why many of you did not keep your membership active during this period, as we were providing very limited value specifically to this region. However, the board this year was determined to make this a priority for this year by putting on events like this one today, and hopefully bringing back an in-person event to the region over the next couple of years. So I hope if you find value from today's event, you'll consider restoring your membership and helping us to rebuild the IMA within this region in the years to come. Before I welcome the moderator of today's panel discussion, I'd first like to thank all of our annual sponsors that you now see on screen, who have been instrumental in helping us transition and now grow the industry association through bringing you events like this one today. So as we get started, a few notes about the next portion of the event. The format today, we have 3 speakers who will be providing 6 to 8 minute presentations to you before coming together for a 30-minute panel discussion and question and answer period. This will be followed by a 30-minute networking session. While our speakers are presenting, we encourage you to write in the chat any questions you have for our speakers, and our moderator will ask them for you during the question and answer period. After the presentations are finished, we start the panel discussion. In addition to adding questions to the chat, you can also virtually raise your hand by using the reactions button on your Zoom screen. The moderator will then ask you to turn your microphone on and camera on to ask your question. And a reminder again to please keep your microphone and mute on your cameras off until we wrap up the panel discussion. But you will get to turn them on again after the first portion of the event when we move into small networking groups, so you can reconnect and meet your colleagues and informally continue the conversation with our speakers and each other. But enough for me. Let's get on with the show. So I'd like to welcome our moderator for today's event, Amy Griffin from RMIT University in Melbourne. Amy is a senior lecturer in geospatial sciences and school of science. Amy, thank you for joining us and welcome to the virtual stage.
Great. Thanks very much, Dave, for that introduction. So I am looking forward to the panel's presentations and discussion today, and finding out a little bit about what they've been up to these last couple of years, because just like everyone else, I've been marooned in my office, in fact, my home office even, for most of that time. I'm also very pleased to see today a number of people who I've met before in the audience. So I'm looking forward to some great interaction between all of us over this next 90 minutes. I'd like to start by welcoming our first presenter today. So Karl Baker, who is at LINZ, at Land Information New Zealand. For those of you who don't know the acronym, he's had an interesting career as a photogrammetrist and kind of been back and forth between LINZ and some other private industry companies, but he's back now at LINZ, working on a whole range of projects and trying to bring things into modern technologies. So I'm looking forward to hearing his perspectives on things that are happening right now today. And I will turn over to him.
Cool, thank you. So the first thing to check is that you can hear me.
We can hear you fine, thank you.
And the introduction is up, yep.
Also good.
Cool. And let's go. So this is a 1989 advertisement from a local newspaper in Wellington, and it's very similar to the ad that I answered in my local paper when I started my journey in the industry. Notice that the line says the most modern instruments and techniques are used, and there's also, and there's also a couple of other statements about having maths, English, geography, and drawing experience. I only had one. That was really good maths. I had a bit of English, and the rest of it I didn't have, but I sort of had a swing at this because of the line that says excellent training is given. This is the LINZ family tree, and it's dating back to 1840. And so you'll see in 1988, when I started my career, the organisation was actually the Department of Survey and Land Information, and it had just been transformed from Lands and Survey, which had been going for a very long time. You'll see that there's sort of distinct work groups that are in there. So, these are really, really experienced people who have been in that specific area for all their life. And when you start in as a survey drafting cadet, which is what the role was, you actually had time in each division so that you were actually taught what they did, and then sort of whatever you took a shine to, that's what you ended up getting put in. Something to notice here is the Terralink in 1996. So that was a big transformation for what LINZ is today and what the government department used to be. And that transformation was to take out the capability and the actual sort of the innovative thinking, all that type of stuff, out of the government department, put it into the private sector. And the idea was that from then on, the private sector would actually maintain maps for LINZ. This didn't turn out too well. And so I think what we have back in LINZ today is trying to get back to the ability to do most things ourselves. And instead of outsourcing the entire map production, we actually just outsource parts of what the capture is. So back in sort of 88, the modern equipment was a digitizing table with a puck attached to it. Hooked up to a personal computer, and that was like massive. And we spent hours and hours and hours converting the old cadastral record sheets. The biggest thing I remember about that is the line printers, and they were just printing all day. These printouts that we were actually checking the data off the record sheet had ended up on the database. One of my favorite areas was working in the multi-land division, and we used to have public counters in those days, so people would actually come in and we'd assist them with searching our records to finding answers to their questions. That's something that we don't have now, but it's something that we're actually getting back to. In 1994, I moved down to Wellington and joined the photogrammetric branch, and they said we were going to have modern equipment, but I was using an A8 that had been purchased in 1967, so it was actually older than I am. And the desktop computer that was working next to me actually cost $60,000 New Zealand, which was about 3 years salary for a single person. One of these A8s is actually being recently rebuilt in an Auckland museum, and that doesn't make me feel very good. So the tools that we started with are actually now in a museum. But we had a product called Aeroplan, and at that time it was the future. And it's really interesting because the Aeroplan and what we could do with it and what the data was is actually problems that we're still trying to solve today. So I was made redundant from Terralink about 4 years after it started, and then I just moved into roles in the public service. And one of my favourite projects that we ever worked on was the on-duty application for New Zealand Police. And so you'll see a screenshot there, and something that's key to me is that 500,000 officer hours have been saved each year by using this application, and that's huge because it, the police really had this drive around prevention, and that means that police have more time to work on prevention, and that's sort of the key of what they do. It really hurts my feelings that in the promotional video, the map service that I made is actually broken and not loading properly, but obviously that didn't matter to a lot of people, but it really, really hurt me. So I'm about to start a video. So something I'd like to talk about today, if it comes up, is this Plan My Walk.nz app that Mountain Safety Council have developed. I see this as the way of the future for how we deliver our information, and how the private sector and these safety councils are actually bringing in all government information into single apps for sort of a single purpose. And this is a great story for me because the way that those videos were made was by a young guy working by himself in a production company. And he used all the data from the LINS data service, and that's imagery and our vector data and our drapes and everything else. And when I talked to him, and this was just after I started in 2019, he said, wouldn't it be great if we actually had a service that didn't have text on it? Because when you rotate those raster images, all the names are upright, then get turned upside down. And he said, wouldn't it be great if you actually had a label service that rotates and pops out depending on the feature type and what you're actually looking at. So I'm excited to say that 4 years later, we actually have that. This is a shot of our Maputnik, which is an open source tool that we use to develop our vector tile services. And the most coolest thing about this is actually I can make changes to the map on a mobile phone. So I don't have to go to a desktop. I don't have to be in the office. I don't really have to do anything. I can just edit code, and that can actually be pushed through to the published map. We're at 6 minutes. So the vector tile service gives us the opportunity to look at New Zealand on that angle. That's really important. I won't go into too much why. But the last thing that I'd like to talk about is our virtual field trips that we do with Learns NZ. And so this was 3 days going out. Our one was focused around that Mountain Safety Council, how people use maps, how search and rescue works, and all those sorts of things. And it makes sort of 3 to 4 minute videos that 11 to 12-year-olds can watch. And it really encourages students to explore the spatial sciences and industries. And my final one is, so this is really cool to me, because this is a photo of a map for a ski field taken on the ski field that the map represents. And this is a product line of clothing that have been made. And I really like that. And I'll leave it at that, even though I haven't really got into too much of what we're up to, but I'm looking forward to the questions. So thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Karl. That brought back memories for me of a backache over digitizing table. I'm glad we don't have to digitize that way anymore. Modern technology has indeed helped us a little bit with that. Okay, so our format here is that everyone is going to, all the panel presenters are going to do their presentation, then we'll open it up for discussion amongst all of us. So our next speaker is going to be Pierre, who works at Hema Maps. For anyone who's not familiar with Hema Maps, they put together an amazing range of products, both printed products and also digital products that people who are exploring very remote parts of this country over here in Australia find very helpful in terms of providing information that you're not going to find on Google Maps. So I'm looking forward now to what Pierre has to tell us about what they are up to at Hema Maps. Pierre, do you want to turn your camera on? Okay, we can see you.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
And we can hear you. Mm-hmm.
That's great. I start by sharing my screen. Do you see that screen?
And we can,
fine?
yep, we can see your
Okay,
screen
great.
just fine. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. So what do we do at Hema Maps? I will kick off my presentation with a short video. Enjoy, thank you. So this was already in a nutshell, actually, what we do here at Hema Maps. So just to give you a bit of an overview, how Hema is structured. And Hema was basically founded by Henry and Margaret, hence Hema. And they started off with a laminating business of sea charts back in the days. And they loved traveling a lot. And they figured that there was a need for really good regional maps for Australia, because back in the days, there was hardly any good products being available. So they started their own business, Hema Maps. So we are in the business for 30 years and have a lot of experience in data capture for over 20 years. We also digitize a lot of content over the last 10 years. And our main focus is regional and outback Australia. We offer publishing products like printed maps and atlases and guides, and we are a market leader in GPS devices and mobile apps, and recently launched our very successful digital explorer map I will come to in a minute. So what's Hema's ambition? What's driving us? So Hema wants to be the best regional map provider of Australia. We want to offer highly detailed topographic maps to basically offer our users a safe adventure, and also, give them confidence in traveling outback and promote Australia. We want to make our tracks in regional Australia navigable, same as obviously the roads we all use in urban areas. And to be able to do that, we have to update, or basically rapidly update our data intake, data coming in from fieldwork, data coming in from our new alpha user program, and data coming in from many other third parties and our partner here. And obviously, we want to make sure that all that data and rich content is available throughout all our print products and digital products. So just to give you a bit of context, so you can see here on the screen, the blue areas, that's where basically the majority of Australia's population live, and that's where the majority of road data, also like the really condensed road data and city data, exists. Hema's playground or sandpit is rather the orange area. So there's a lot of road kilometers, and we calculated it's more than 1 million kilometers of road and track data. We'd like to either update, validate, and give it that rich content, whether it's seasonal closure attribution, or road track classification, or we also want to make sure that areas of cultural significance is also protected and correctly displayed on our maps. And in doing that, we are in close contact with Kimberley Council or Northern Land Council, for instance. So road data is obviously one of our core data sets, and there's obviously a huge demand of having that road data up to date. And we came up with a process to update our road data with our partner and merge our road data with our partners from here, because they offer really good and rich content for city areas. Where we come from, as you know, our road data is more from the regional areas and outback areas of Australia. So that merge had to be more efficient. So that was something we were working on over the last 2 to 3 years. And there's, you know, all these different data streams coming in either from our map patrol doing field work, our successfully launched alpha user program, where basically four-wheel drive enthusiasts contribute one of their road data they capture for us, and we were able to, you know, add annually about 10,000 track data, which is amazing. And then there's obviously the community cloud data. We have access to either through our mobile app users or the navigator users. And then we have still data we want to update or validate, and we do that either through desktop, or we do that through desktop. To give you a bit more of a context, what that means in terms of how we were able to improve our road data intake and the whole updating progress. So 2009, we kicked off that project, and you can see already, you know, we were able to have a lot more road data kilometers, which we were able to update. And also at the same time, we're able to integrate a lot new road data and track kilometers, which is amazing. I think we came up with probably 95% improvement of the whole road data intake, which is great. And obviously that data becomes then available through our digital products on a fairly regular basis. So we offer our newly created vector map, which runs on the Mapbox platform, which is a highly detailed, feature-rich digital map, if you like. It's always, you know, sharp and crisp, rendered on any device, a phone or tablet. It's highly customizable, so you can turn on and off layers if you want to. You can, you know, change the style on the fly, colors and things like that, which is great. And obviously, we are able to update that map on a regular basis, which we do offer quarterly. Just to give you an idea in terms of differences. So on the top left, that's our digital map. And then there's other, you know, companies offering similar map services, but you can see there clearly that, you know, in outback and regional Australia, our map is way more detailed, and there's a lot more and rich content, which gives our users a more safe environment to, you know, and have confidence in navigating regional Australia, which is great, and our customers love that map. And just at the end, just a quick overview of the product range we offer. So on the left-hand side, our digital products, whether it's the app, the navigator, or web services. And on the right-hand side, a whole range of different samples of print maps we're offering. That's it. Thank you. So I hope, you know, the few minutes gave you a quick insight of what we do at Hema Maps and how we improved our data intake over time. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Pierre, for that. I'm sure it will provoke a number of interesting questions. And I want to remind everyone in the audience that you can put your questions in the chat for when we get to the broader discussion. All right, so we'll move on now to our third and final panelist. So we're jumping back over the ditch, back to New Zealand. And I'm very pleased to introduce Roger. Roger has his own small custom firm, Roger Smith, called Geographx. And he's made some very beautiful maps of New Zealand over time. So I'm looking forward to finding out the latest and greatest of what he's been up to, because no doubt it will be amazing to behold. So Roger, if you're ready, you can go ahead and turn your camera on. We can see you.
Thank you, Amy. Can you hear me?
And we can hear you. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, a little bit of historical stuff. First, my knowledge of the mapping industry is pretty much framed by my experiences with Geographx, which, as Amy said, is a small cartographic design company I established in the late 1990s. In hindsight, my timing was pretty good because the transition to digital technologies back then was turning the industry upside down, and old school cartographers were either adapting or resigning, and none of them had time to notice my my lame attempts, my new independent startup that knew nothing and tended to break a lot of rules. And it wasn't just the industry that I was ignorant of. I didn't have any computer skills nor cartographic training. However, I was a map lover, and I suspect a natural born geographer. I'd long been a map user as a keen tramper, or trekker, as you might say up north, and as a general aviation pilot. And I'd always had a keen interest in geomorphology. From my map user perspective, I felt many of the maps then being produced were kind of a bit technical and a bit sterile, fairly bland colors, too much emphasis on symbolization. And so it all began. And I should say here that I'm just going to talk about what I consider to be a classic example of product differentiation, which I think is as important today as it was back then. And certainly there's still plenty of potential for it. From the outset, my mission was to try and make maps that the user could more easily interpret and understand. Empathetic maps, you might say, where much of the background and the contextual information would be communicated intuitively, freeing up brain power to focus on making more sense of the overlying thematic information. Organic maps, if you like, that conveyed some appreciation of the physical environment that they purported to represent. And because my interest lay in print mapping, maps with sufficient visual appeal to warrant hanging on the wall. I call them art maps as opposed to smart maps, which are designed for presentation on digital devices. I was pretty keen back then to indulge my creative side and produce tangible products. So most of my little talk's going to be about print maps, printed wall maps, and usually large format wall maps. So Donna, perhaps I've got a couple of slides, if you could just hook them up in whatever order they come, just for 10 or 20 seconds each, perhaps. So Geographx developed a distinctive style of map that I hoped would appeal to other map users. It was a bit of a gamble because it was sort of based on instinct rather than any credible market intelligence. And there's three key areas of design briefly that contribute to this geographic style. The first is a heavy focus on landforms and terrain. And back at the time, we had to develop our own terrain models in order to do that. The second key design area is the use of natural color base maps, which again, we had to develop from scratch. And it's always puzzled me why other people haven't sort of moved into that area, because we've had pretty good feedback over the years. People find them easier to relate to in many respects. They do have their own challenges, of course, with type legibility and what have you. And the third area was our use of oblique map views. Not always. We always created a mixture of obliquely projected maps and also plan view where appropriate. Anyway, I have to say it all seemed to work okay, as these kind of maps underpinned our custom design business for the next couple of decades. And our referrals came primarily from word of mouth or via the website, and our work often ended up on public display, which was an added bonus, provided we remembered to put our logo on the map. Throughout that period, we benefited hugely from two industry-wide trends, one of which was the constant improvement in the availability and access to data. And the second was the constant technological advances in computer power and in mapping software. And I'm pretty confident both those trends will continue indefinitely. So where to next? Currently, I'm in the process of retiring, but I still intend to continue making maps. I've sacked all my clients and now I run Geographx as a one-man operation. So no more custom map design for other people. For me, that means I'll now have 100% creative control over my work and no more deadlines to meet. My new focus is to grow my own catalogue of New Zealand backcountry and wilderness maps. And to this end, I'm developing a new website to showcase and sell prints. I've given some thought as to how best to structure this, taking into account the needs of both myself and my future customers. I have confidence in the product, but I don't have any desire to personally get involved with the printing or distribution of the maps that I sell. My time is better spent actually creating the maps, and I have no wish to handle them, nor do I have room to warehouse them. So my plan is firstly to run down my few remaining stocks of offset printed maps. 2, all maps will thereafter be print on demand, where orders are received are referred to a commercial printer I frequently work with. The map will then be printed at the advertised size and on the advertised print media, and then couriered directly from the print shop to the customer. However, I've also noticed increasing interest from potential customers who want maps printed at different sizes and who want some choice as to the print media. I get lots of requests for maps on canvas, maps on ACM, that's aluminium composite materials, things I can't personally cope with or provide. And there are also issues with shipping of large format maps, not only the costs, but the risk of damage in transit. So I plan to now offer licenses to print my maps. The customer, in this case, is required to nominate a local commercial printer they wish to work with. I then forward the print file to that print shop, and I charge the customer a reproduction fee per print, regardless of what size it's printed at. The customer will be responsible for meeting all the print and associated costs directly with the print shop. Besides providing choice to the customer as to print size and print media, this also provides the customer with ready access to professional print advice, which I can't provide, and also saves them the cost of shipping. And the reason why I plan to make my print files available only to commercial print shops is to limit distribution and minimize the risk of the files being shared more widely. I figure that with skin in the game, commercial printers can be trusted to act ethically. Again, I hope it's a gamble that will pay off. It's all part of anticipating future needs. And that's it from me. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much for that, Roger. That was very interesting to hear how you're thinking about taking your business model forward in a different way with your company. Okay, so just everyone remember you can put your questions in the chat. I'd like to invite the rest of the panel back on screen. So if you want to go ahead and turn on your cameras. Right, fantastic. Okay, so we've had some diverse presentations from people who work for different types of companies. And I think that gives us a chance to have a really interesting conversation. So I'm going to start by taking one of the questions from the chat. And that first question was directed to Karl from Dave, in fact. And he's wondering if at LINS there's more demand for from third parties for the raw data or from services that you're distributing sort of value added to other people.
Yeah, so that's a great question. Thank you for that. So the LINS data service is really about raw data, and when it was created, 10, 12 years ago, people downloaded everything. And so we've really moved. So we have this, services are the key now. people only want services, they want to hook it into their apps and that kind of thing really easily. And what we actually had happening was apps that had data that was downloaded that you could also go and get the service from the LDS, and the LDS wasn't designed for those services. So we're getting hit by apps, you know, with a high volume asking for these services that we expect people to download. So it's really around the maturity of the customer. So some of the customers are locked in and they have to take a copy of that raw data and put it into their system because they can't take those services in. And so with what we're doing now with the base map services, that we're actually converting all our imagery into cloud optimized GeoTIFFs, and we've actually put money into the development of that as code. So for instance, the New Zealand Defence Force, we share our raw data as cogs on our AWS buckets. So it doesn't even go into the LDS from their point of view. So it takes that load away. So a big thing for us is turn up with what you can do, and we can deliver it, but it's certainly a way towards services, because people don't want to take a copy of that data. And if they do want to take a copy of that data, we can do it in different ways. We shouldn't be using the LDS.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that makes me think of something a bit interesting to ask Pierre. Do you provide any of your data as services to people to ingest into their applications, or do you just deliver your own applications?
A bit of both. I mean, obviously, mainly it's our own products and apps we provide at the moment, but we are also looking into partners which are keen to use our data as well. I can't name any names at the moment, but there's something in the works, and we get requests on a regular basis, and we're working on something. Sure.
I think for me, it was very interesting to learn that you're working with Here, because they also have very interesting data sets, and it seems like a natural combination for you guys to work together. Okay, let me just look at the chat here and see what questions have come in. Okay, Pierre, there's also a question for you here about how did demand change during COVID for print versus digital products?
Yeah, I'm not sure about, print versus digital. What I do know is that obviously when COVID hit, everything basically slowed down a little bit. And even our production went down 80%, and our staff was down to 80%. On top of that, the whole supply chain issue that evolved with COVID made it really hard, almost impossible, to get print products out, let alone, obviously there wasn't that huge demand because people literally couldn't go anywhere. The good thing is that, while we were in COVID, basically, we still kept going, obviously, and we came stronger out once, the pandemic kind of slowed down a little bit. So that was actually good for Hema. So we could see a bit of an improvement in terms of, sales after that, but for both digital and print. Right.
Once people were able to be on the move again. Go ahead, Karl.
That's right.
Yeah, can I answer that? Because we track that really well through our printing, and in New Zealand, our printed maps stopped completely. So it was a good thing people weren't going out. And then on the other side of it, and the digital maps and online stuff, people were actually looking at where they're going to go. So we could actually see that trend of a complete stop of paper maps and a real high digital people checking out where they're going to go. And we see that on Tuesday nights for whatever reason. We see a lot of Tuesday nights people are looking at our maps planning. So that must be planning day. Then after it, we actually had to change our graph about our performance because we went through the roof for paper maps. And this is around New Zealanders can't travel, so they stay in the country and then they go out and they're doing the right thing and they're taking maps. So we had this trough, and the other bad thing about it was that lots and lots of people went out in the middle of winter, and that's a really bad thing. Because they had been cramped in for so long. So for us, we're back to what we were pre-COVID for paper maps, and the digital interest that was actually sparked. We've seen the digital use of maps actually retain a higher level.
Interesting. So that's persisted after the pandemic. Roger, how did the pandemic affect your maps?
Very little, really. the demand for custom maps probably continued as per normal. I was putting limited effort into trying to sell print maps, but that wasn't really affected either. It just sort of continued on. The one thing that probably did suffer is I have a limited number of folded print maps designed for use in the field, and obviously people couldn't get out during the worst of the pandemic. So sales of those certainly did drop off.
Yeah, but you guys kind of opened up internally much faster than we did here. So maybe your drop off wasn't quite so long as at least as it was in Melbourne, where we spent an awful lot of time within 5K of our homes over the last couple of years.
I think we were both.
Sorry, what were you saying?
Both pretty slow, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, there's a question for Karl. Without naming names, why do you think TerraLink didn't work for LINS outsourcing? And what's the advantage of bringing that capability back in-house into LINS?
So it did work because LINS didn't put any value on the contracts. So you got screwed down, and there was a competitive market, and people were trying to win the project as opposed to making money. And so they just continued to lose money on it. And I think there's that real debt. The value of making maps isn't seen by anybody outside, you know, the effort that you have to do and what you could actually do. And because, you know, we pretty much give these maps away for free, we charge $3 for a printed map that goes to the printer. You know, there's no money making thing in there. And so that's why it didn't work, because it just wasn't economically viable for private companies to be doing this. There was sort of no incentive. The advantage of bringing it back in-house, we've kind of half brought it back in-house. So we're looking at a different way of doing things. So we outsource our building capture, for instance. That's one of our high-value independent data sets. So we outsource that because we know private companies that can capture that really, really cheaply, and then we integrate that back into the products. So I think the advantage of being in-house is that people trust LINS. They want to buy LINS maps. They don't want to buy other people's maps and services. And even if it's our own data, you know, they don't trust private companies to be giving them the right information, which is really weird to me. And so we have more control. We can put our name on it, and we can decide what we want to do. So instead of making sure each map is updated, we make sure that there's high value data updates in all maps across the entire country, and we provide the data as individual layers. Is sort of the key thing there. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things that was interesting to me about what you said in your panel was that you described that TerraLink formation process as taking the innovative thinking out of LINS, and that just seemed absolutely crazy to me, that a government department would want to throw away the quality thinking. Well, not throw away, but give it away to somebody else. And something that struck me in my visits to New Zealand over the years is there is a huge amount of innovative thinking, and something I think you guys do very well over the ditch is cross collaboration between government, the private sector. You know, because you're a relatively small place, it's easy to know most people, right? And you seem to have a really good spirit of cooperation rather than destructive kinds of competition. And that's always been very impressive to me personally, when I cross the ditch and find out what new and exciting things are happening. And LINS, to me, when I think of it, is an organization that seems to be forward thinking and trying. You don't think so? maybe it's just saying something about the state of affairs over here, but anyway, it struck me as being a place that was open to new ideas. Maybe I've just met all the best people from LINS, and you've captured it all amongst yourselves. All right, so I have a couple of questions for Pierre here. One is, do you use digital data from Australian state and federal topographic mapping agencies?
Yes, we do. That's the short answer. So our base topographic data is basically coming from Geosense Australia. So it's basically everything topo, contours, place names, parts of hydrographic data sets. And then there's other data sets we on a regular basis get from state and local government departments, things like national parks, Aboriginal areas, IPAs, indigenous protected areas, and so forth. And then there's also a BOM where we get data for our hydro network. They just recently, I think, released another set of data we are currently going through and validate and try to, integrate into our core data. So yes, we definitely use federal and state data.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm going to use my amazing powers of being moderator to ask my own question. One thing that you guys all touched on in one way or another, and one of the things that I think automated solutions still haven't solved for us as cartographers is the issue of labeling. And especially now this has become more challenging now that people can manipulate the map. So you can't just design one solution for paper that's baked in. And so now we have people working with maps and seeing them from different perspectives, and a label placement that might be good for one perspective is terrible for another perspective, etc. And they can also change the base map and what works well for a sort of a natural color satellite image orthophoto underneath is not what looks good for other kinds of base maps. So what do you see as the key innovations that have been happening that have informed your dealing with labels in your various products? Because you all produce very different things in some regards. So I'm curious to hear, maybe Roger, do you want to start?
Yeah, certainly. I have to say that although I use automated labeling, I just use it as a rough draft, and I've always been happiest if I've actually manually kind of gone over everything afterwards. And I still do that to this day. Again, my comment's pretty much limited to print mapping here, but the biggest challenge for me has been labeling onto natural color base maps. Because you're using really bold, varied colors, and because I'm generally trying to create artworks, I actually want my labeling to be perfectly readable, but not in your face. I don't want you to see it from across a room, for example. But when you get up close and personal, everything should be completely identifiable. So it actually took us a couple of years to learn a few tricks as to how to best achieve that to a standard that we were happy with. Yeah, and it's still...
Any one of them you'd like to share?
Maybe later, but...
Trade secret, okay.
It's definitely, I think, the biggest challenge to using natural color base maps. Just getting the labeling. Right.
Yeah. Karl, I'd be interested to hear a little bit more about this. What was it, Maputnik? And how you work with labels with that?
Very poorly, actually. We're at version 1.8. So what we're finding out is that there's information that we don't give to our customers. So all that placement from our map production system doesn't come into the product. And so for version 1.0, we said, right, for what we've got, how can we make a good looking map? It's kind of pretty rubbish, but what we've done, and we work with the New Zealand Geo Board on this, is to put admin levels and tags and this type of other information on it. So we're about to get into that field. Personally, I don't like labels. I take them all off, and that solves the problem. I'm into that whole idea of the picture, like especially with LiDAR, you can see what you're looking at, and for a beautiful looking kind of map, that's where we're at. With putting it around labeling, so we have historic sites that we have, right, and you can have the star, and when you zoom in, there's a note on the map. What we've done is that we bring that note in, and you can almost have a paragraph of information within the map. So you can see a symbol for an historic point, you can zoom into it, and it actually displays when you're at the very lowest zoom levels. Yeah, so at those low zoom levels, there is no problem with labeling. So that's what I really like, which was done something slightly different on that, is the exploring as a digital map, only bring those things in when they really, really need them. So labeling, we're still exploring, and what we want to do is we want to put tags on our information that make those labels useful in all systems, not just our own.
Okay, so you're about smartening the data.
Yeah, and like
Smartening the data.
I look across to see our cartographers. I don't want to say it too loud because they love placing labels, and that's what they do all day. So.
Right, great. Pierre, do you want to talk about that a little bit? Since you produce for many different kinds of products, and so you're going to have different constraints in all those different media and all those different size formats, etc.
Yeah, and that's obviously the biggest challenge. And the thing is with Hema maps, and that's, I think, our key feature is we have quite a lot of content on our maps, and that makes it really challenging, in particular with label placement. So currently for Quint, our workflow is, I mean, we use Esri software a lot, or mainly actually for our print products. So we rely on the Maplix engine, which is quite powerful, but there's obviously limitations as soon as you put too many labels on it. And I mean, there's things like, you can set up certain rules, at what point certain labels should label, I don't know, 1 o'clock and then clockwise, and whatever fits, but there's still quite a few labels which can't be fitted. So what we do, we have to polish these maps up. So we set up everything as much as possible, basically data driven in a digital world, and then extract it and export it into Illustrator, where we do basically the manual label placement, but that's for print. In the digital world, it's slightly different. I mean, there's still constraints and there's still a lot of labeling going on, especially in the higher, if you zoom out. But what we do is we basically created attributes for all these labels in the higher zoom level, and basically gave them numbers, like clockwise number, like a clock number, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so forth. So that means that, like, for instance, to give you an example, Brisbane is always labeled, on the eastern side in the sea, and Perth is always labeled on the western side in the sea. If we wouldn't have done it, it would have done it either right in the center, or always on the top right, or always bottom center, or whatnot. But the good thing is with digital, and obviously we have full control at, when a locality is shown and displayed, the further you zoom in, the more room you get. So in kind of street level, it's literally not a problem, and we just let the engine decide where the label is sitting, whatever fits best programmatically.
Okay, good. So I think that was interesting, seeing how 3 different organizations deal with labels differently, because this is still really a great unsolved problem. And I know when I use a map, the label is never where when I need it, it's never there in interactive maps. So somebody needs to solve that problem. Probably not me, but somebody who is very computationally smart needs to figure that out. Roger, I wonder if you wanted to just talk a little bit more about this idea of licensing your content. This is a strategy I haven't really seen a lot of cartographers use. What led you to that as a possible solution for how you're kind of evolving your company?
Well, I did have trouble coming to that solution because I couldn't really see many options. I had people advise me to look at those non-fundable, those NF, whatever they are.
NFTs.
See how that was going to work. And yeah, basically I wanted to put more control in the hands of the customer and less time and effort for myself. And the biggest drawback was certainly the risk of losing control of a master file out there in the ether, which is why I made the decision just to limit distribution to commercial printers. And so far, just with a few sort of tentative efforts into this market, it's looking quite promising, because I'm getting print companies coming back and saying, oh, that's great. We could, have you got other maps rather than this one that's been ordered? Because we quite like anything that's relative to our area here. And so I'm hoping it'll develop into a network, if you like, of probably preferred print shops located strategically around the country. And some of them offer different services as well. Some of them do high-end framing in addition. But certainly the demand from the customers is for a lot of choice and freeway as to how they get their maps printed. And the size is the other thing. I'm now making sure all my maps are kind of optimized for what I call 100% size, whatever that might be. But I'm making sure that they're printable both bigger and smaller, and I'll offer recommendations as to how far they can go. And quite a few maps are capable of being printed up to 3 meters across. Yeah.
It's kind of interesting that the print shops are seeing it as a potential opportunity on their side, in addition to fulfilling orders for individual clients who come to them. So yeah, it's a very, very interesting strategy.
Well,
All
hopefully
right,
they'll
Donna,
I was just going
go
to say,
ahead.
hope they've got the right, but they'll also take the opportunity to print off a copy for themselves and put it in the shop window.
Yeah, some more advertisement for you, even free advertisement. Good
We
point.
offer that also we offer that also to some of our clients, because we have also we offer custom maps, and some of the clients also ask, oh, I've got a local printer, I'd like to get our local printer to print it. But what you can do is you can protect these files. Like, I guess, Roger, you offer a PDF, a high resolution PDF, but you can passcode it or protect it with a passcode. So that means not everyone can just print it. I mean, they can still do a screen print, but it's obviously not the high resolution you want for that particular product. So that helps. That's the only way. And obviously you want to make sure there's a license agreement between the two parties,
Yeah. The advice I had, Pierre, was that that passcode protection wasn't foolproof, and that anyone who was determined could probably find a way around it. And also, I'm loath to put too many restrictions or hurdles in the way of the printers, because I want them to be positive about collaborating with the whole thing. And I suppose the last thing to say there is I'm a fairly trusting guy. So if I think it'll work, I'll give it my best shot, and we'll see what happens. But I don't spend over my shoulder.
Wonderful. Okay, so this has been an interesting discussion. I'm going to invite Dave back. He's going to explain how the networking session is going to happen now.